faith and organized religion are powerful tools that can heavily influence people to think a certain way. In good hands, it can be used to create a harmonious society where everyone respects each other and cherishes life. But what if a being with malintent held the reins of power? What would happen to the people of that world who naively believe in something that disregards them as though they are insects to be squashed? Today's game, Lunar 2 Eternal Blue Complete, examines this theme. Before we begin, I must mention that I love when a sequel is set in the same world as a game that preceded it. Being able to revisit locations that you had previously explored and see the friends that you had made on the journey is something that always makes my heart sing. Lunar 2 Eternal Blue Complete by GameArts does just this, although on a much different scale. The game is set around 1,000 years after the events of Lunar Silver Star Story Complete, so the friends you made are long dead, and the locations are barely recognizable. Released for the Sony PlayStation in between 1999 and 2000 in Japan and NTSC regions, the game promises an adventure in a world that is at first alien, but spreads a familiar warmth, like brittle butter melting over fresh bread. We join Hiro and his companion Ruby, who happens to heavily resemble Null, as they explore old ruins for treasure. Despite Hiro's grandfather advising them not to get into trouble, they just can't help themselves. After a rather close call with death, not so much dissimilar to Jack's situation at the start of Wild Arms, events place Hiro and his grandfather Gwyn into contact with a mysterious being known only as the Destroyer, who it is said will herald the end of the world. The thing is, this nefarious beast is a beautiful woman, and Hiro isn't ready to believe that this stoic, one-track-minded being could possibly cause the world's demise. You see, the woman is Lucia, heralding from the Blue Star, a planet that orbits the Silver Star, the world that our heroes inhabit. She claims that she is here on an urgent mission to visit Althena, who is reported to reside within the sealed city of Pentagoulia. After an event that causes Lucia to lose all of her powers, Hiro takes it upon himself to help her complete her mission. I often tend to see a lot of love given to the first game, but hardly any to this one, and I am quite surprised at that and wonder why. In my opinion, Lunar 2 Eternal Blue Complete is the better of the two games. Instead of a focus on a coming-of-age love story, the game tells the tale of a group of companions who band together through circumstance to overcome their own individual problems and save the world. Instead of characters that seem one-sided like the first game, this game has multi-dimensional characters that develop over the course of the narrative. Rather than joining the party just because they can, Nash, they join because they have a purpose, and by joining will be able to fulfill their duty. For example, Ronfa joins because he helps to cure Lucia of her curse, and after this continues to stay with the party to absolve the helplessness he feels at having not been able to complete this task for a woman in his past. Whilst he appears a drunken gambler, not that much unlike Kyle, he has more depth to him, and I especially enjoyed his interactions with Ruby, who often singed his eyebrows whenever she was displeased with him. I mentioned before that the game is set 1,000 years since the end of the first game, and due to this many of the settlements that you're familiar with have disappeared. A lot of the locations that you visit on your adventure are new, although a keen eye will be able to discern details alluding to past locations, particularly around the Maribia Vein area. Each settlement that you come across has its own problems, either related to Lucia's appearance, or due to the fanatical Church of Althena that is sweeping the world, building sanctuaries in every city, and demanding recompense for the goddess's protection and favour. During your adventure, it is inevitable that you will have to travel through hostile territories. In these areas, Hiro can use a short burst of speed to run just a little faster, which is different to his fast walking pace in cities. I understand the idea of realism where this was incorporated, but the 3-second burst of speed is annoying when trying to navigate around enemies. They appear on the field screen, and coming into contact with them will initiate a battle. While some enemies have predictable patterns and will only rush in a straight line toward the position that Hiro was standing when they began their charge, others will make a beeline for him and are unavoidable amidst the narrow corridors and the lackluster pitter-patter of his hurried footfalls. Battles take place on a separate screen with your characters lined up on the right and the enemies on the left. What I liked about this game is that you can choose where to position your characters by using the formation command from the menu prior to battle. but even if you decide during battle that character positions are not optimal, you can change them by using the defend command and moving them. Positions are important as each character has a range that they can use to attack, and if an enemy is out of that range, then you've basically wasted a turn where the character has hurriedly rushed forward and then run out of steam. All spells, however, can be cast from wherever a character is standing and is not affected by range, which made planning positioning in boss battles much easier. Characters can attack, defend, use an item or spell to defeat their enemies. For the entire game, Ruby will be floating around above the combat area as an uncontrollable party member who will sometimes assist to take out weaker enemies. Lucia is also uncontrollable, and I enjoyed that her AI changed as the story developed and her character grew, going from a selfish woman who would only buff herself to buffing and healing her allies whenever they were in trouble. The other characters in combat are all controllable and determined based on where you are in the story, and you can never have more than 5 characters at once, not including Ruby. I enjoyed that in this game every character was useful. For example, in the first game, Nash became useless when he had no MP remaining. Lemina, on the other hand, will cast magic from whatever staff you have equipped her with, at no MP cost, meaning that she is a lot more versatile and never outstood her welcome in my party. I also enjoyed that each character was unique in their skill sets, and these related to their individual character's weapon types or profession. For example, Ronfa is a former priest of Althena, so he can use curative spells, but he's also a gambler, so some of his abilities are luck-based, literally determined by the roll of the dice. On the other hand, Jean is a dancer, so her abilities reflect that until she accepts her past, and then she begins to learn abilities related to her new role. Every character had their own unique skill set which made them invaluable allies in battle, which I truly appreciated. In the previous game, items were limited to a set number per character and did not stack, with Null carrying a limited number of additional items. Eternal Blue has no such restriction, with no limit on the number of items that you can carry, and characters being able to access a shared inventory rather than what they carry individually. The only caveat is that you can stock 20 of each individual item type, though I never found this to be a problem, as resource management was not strained, especially when almost all dungeons had an Althena statue that you could use for a free heal. And what with the enemies not respawning unless you left the dungeon completely, made the game much more bearable to push through. Characters don't have much customization outside of the equipment that you give them, as they learn their spells and abilities through leveling up, though some spells will change to more powerful versions through the course of your adventure. Unique to this game is that each character can equip up to 2 crests, which can alter their abilities or aptitude for combat. Crests have abilities individually, but some pairings can completely change the way a character works, such as a combination that I gave to Jean which saw her attack power increasing incrementally each turn, or a combination that raised the character's attack exponentially at the sacrifice of being able to use abilities. I thought it was nice that this little addition made it possible to customize the characters to suit your own playstyle, rather than them all following exclusive cookie-cutter class tropes. If you do tire of the adventure, then unfortunately there isn't anything additional to do. The story is a one-track narrative, much like Lucia's mission, although I will note that after you beat the game there is an epilogue that adds some more time onto the adventure. I've seen other people mention that this epilogue in particular is how a game should do an epilogue, but I don't agree. It basically consists of 6 or so extra dungeons that have no additional story other than the final one, which gives you the true ending upon completion. I would have liked to have seen a conclusion to each of the characters' arcs rather than just Hiro's, like it would have been nice to do some recruiting for Vayne to help Lemina, or for maybe some of the extra dungeons to have some sort of an impact on Leo, enlightening him as to the purpose of his existence. Don't get me wrong, I did appreciate the additional content, but saying that it's how an epilogue should be done was a bit of a stretch for me. If we're going to start talking about issues with the game, narratively speaking, I do want to mention that there is no mention or appearance of the Vile tribe other than a notation placed by Phasia in a book within the Magic Guild's library. I thought that Althena accepted the Vile tribe to live side by side with the people of the Blue Star at the end of the first game, so to have no evidence of this was a little strange. It would have been nice to see how, in those 1,000 years since, the two races had come to coexist and help each other, rather than fighting for land occupation. The other issue that I have with this game is one caused by the localizers. Yes, I'm going to complain yet again about working design, surprise surprise. I know many people don't like me to talk about this issue because they have a nostalgia for the game, having played it in the 90s when it first came out, but I don't think that that should be used as an excuse. Once again, Working Designs played around with the original Japanese script, inserting pop cultural references that can sometimes become dated or break the fourth wall. As an example, in Pentagoulia, there are a couple of NPCs who directly reference the music that is playing, stating that it's making their ears bleed as though they can hear the game music. And personally, I actually liked the music. It's a shame that Working Designs have no taste. Additionally, they added a lot of frat boy humour, which may have been funny to college students, but I found to be quite dated. GameArts made Grandia as well, and that game comes nowhere near the derogatory level of the dialogue of this game, probably because it wasn't localized by Working Designs. Don't get me wrong, I do like the odd below the belt humour, but not when it's inserted in places where it didn't exist to begin with, and pulls me out of the narrative, which is supposed to have a serious tone. The other big qualm I have with Working Designs, specifically with this game, is that in the opening and closing credits, they put their names first, before that of the Japanese developers who actually made the game. It's so disrespectful. If I was GameArts, I'd have been very affronted by that action. Graphically, the game doesn't look that different to the prior one, however I did appreciate little animations such as Ron for tossing his dice when in a conversation. As the game is split across 3 discs, it contains a lot more cutscenes, and I was pleasantly surprised by the number of them. They were always a great reward to look forward to after slooking through a dungeon. The battle backdrops are lovingly detailed, and some of the field environments shift from being 2D pixel art to looking like matte palette art, which I thought contrasted nicely. In conversations, the characters were identified using face portraits that would display different emotions based on what was being said, which was also a nice touch. The music of the game is more memorable to me than the first one, and I actually had a hard time deciding which was my favourite track, as there are so many good ones. None of the tracks, including the Pentagoulia one, ever outstayed its welcome, and I always looked forward to seeing what I'd encounter next. If I had to make a complaint, I'd say that maybe it would have been nice to have a few more town and dungeon tracks, but other than that, the music was great. Having just said it would be difficult to choose one, I would probably have to say that I loved Golden Voice every time it played. It fits Lucius so well, and always played at emotional parts of the game, which just made the scenes even more chef's kiss. The game also contains a lot of voice dialogue, which is passable, although I felt that some of the characters were a little overblown. For example, I wasn't the biggest fan of Luminar's voice acting. I felt like it could have been a little more toned down. Here, why don't you decide?
I guess you did pass. Ta-da! Congratulations, you're a winner! My name is Lamina Alsa. You have now officially passed the entrance exam to the Magic Guild of Vane. Did I surprise you?
Lunar 2 Eternal Blue Complete for the Sony PlayStation is a game that anyone who loves the thrill of adventure should play. The intriguing narrative, coupled with the heavy theme of how religion influences the realm of thought of an individual, will grasp you from the beginning. Having taken around 35 hours to complete, including the epilogue and all the dungeons it contained, I would highly recommend you check out this title over the previous one, though playing Lunar Silver Star Story Complete would give you a better appreciation for this game. The lovable cast will have you snickering and shedding a tear all the way through the narrative. Though it comes down to personal taste about the localization, I still wholeheartedly recommend that you try this game for yourself. So what are you waiting for? Pack your bags and prepare for a fulfilling adventure of discovery, intrigue, and blossoming romance. Just be careful not to anger Ruby if you cherish your eyebrows. By the way, are there any games that you have played where the sequel was designed better than the prequel? Let me know in the comments. This has been Venoir with a review of Lunar 2 Eternal Blue Complete for the Sony PlayStation. If you enjoyed this review, like and subscribe for more great JRPG content. As always, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you all again soon. Take care of yourselves, and bye bye for now.
Side to